She snapped at me in front of her friends. "You can't even satisfy me, let alone provide for me." I smiled, paid the bill for myself, and walked out. That night, she showed up crying, but my new girl opened the door. I am 28 male, and if there is one thing I know, it is how to spot a crack at a foundation before the whole building comes screaming down. I spend my life looking at blueprints, calculating stress loads, and making sure things stay upright. It's a job that requires patience and a lot of quiet observation. Unfortunately, I applied those skills to my job, but completely ignored them in my personal life for 3 years. I was dating a girl, 26 female, who I honestly thought was the one. Looking back, I wasn't a boyfriend to her. I was a subsidized lifestyle. I'm a guy who grew up middle class, worked my way through a tough degree, and I value stability. She was the opposite. She lived for the gram, for the aesthetic, and for the feeling of being seen at the right places. When we met, she was sweet, a bit flighty, but I figured she just needed a solid ground to stand on. I stepped up. I paid for the apartment, her car note, her insurance, and even her content creation gear. I thought I was being a provider. I thought I was being the man my father taught me to be. But there's a very thin line between being a provider and being a doormat, and I had crossed it about 2 miles back. Things started to get really bad when she joined this new inner circle of friends. They were all aspiring influencers, entrepreneurs who didn't actually have businesses, and guys who wore fake designer clothes and talked about passive income while living in their parents' basements. Among them was a guy she called her business mentor. He was the brother of her best friend, and he was always around, whispering in her ear about how she was destined for greatness and how her current life was holding her back. I saw the red flags, but I figured if I just kept being the stable one, she'd eventually see through the nonsense. The night it all blew up started like any other Tuesday. She told me we were going to dinner with her friends at this high-end bistro downtown. I had just come from a massive bridge inspection. I was sweaty, I had dirt on my jeans, and I was exhausted. I wanted a burger and a shower, but she insisted. She said it was a celebratory dinner because her mentor had helped her secure a big investment opportunity. When I walked into that restaurant, I felt the shift immediately. There were 6 of them at a long table. The mentor was sitting right next to her, leaning in way too close. They were already 3 bottles of expensive wine deep. I sat down at the end of the table, feeling like an outsider in my own relationship. The conversation was shallow, expensive vacations, who was buying which car, and how much clout they were gaining. Then the mentor started talking about this trip to the Amalfi Coast. He was saying it would cost at least $16,000 for a luxury villa for the week. My girlfriend looked at me, her eyes glassy from the wine. She told the table that we were going. I cleared my throat and said, "I don't think that's in the budget right now, especially with the house I'm trying to close on." The table went dead silent. The mentor chuckled, a condescending, nasty sound. He looked at her and said, "See, I told you, he's got that scarcity mindset. You can't fly with eagles when you're tied to a turkey." My girlfriend didn't even flinch. She didn't defend me. Instead, she looked at me with a level of pure, unadulterated vitriol. She stood up, knocking her chair back, and yelled loud enough for the entire bistro to stop eating. "That is your problem. You are so small. You're a boring, dusty little man who plays with dirt all day. You can't even satisfy me in the ways that actually matter, let alone provide the life I'm supposed to be living. You're a placeholder, and honestly, you're a cheap one." Her friends started snickering. One of the girls actually recorded it on her phone. I sat there, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel hurt. I felt nothing. It was like a switch flipped. I looked at the table full of half-eaten $60 steaks and $200 bottles of wine that I knew they expected me to pay for. I raised my hand for the waiter. He came over, looking incredibly uncomfortable. I pointed at my small salad and my sparkling water. "Separate mine," I said clearly. "I'm paying for my items only. These 6 people are on a separate check." My girlfriend's jaw dropped. "What are you doing? You made the reservation." "I did, and I'm also the one who pays the rent for the apartment you're currently living in. Or, rather, the one you were living in. Since I can't satisfy your needs or provide for you, I'm going to start by removing the burden of my financial support. Have fun with the trip." I walked out. I didn't look back. I got into my truck, and the moment I closed the door, I felt like I could finally breathe. I blocked her on everything: Instagram, TikTok, her cell number, even her email. I knew she'd try to spin a narrative, so I called my brother, who's a bit of a tech whiz, and told him to keep an eye on what she posted. I didn't go back to our apartment. I had been planning a surprise for our anniversary, a condo I had purchased in secret. I had been living frugally, saving every bonus and side hustle penny to get this place as a forever home for us. Thank God I hadn't put her name on the deed yet. I went there, slept on a mattress on the floor, and started my plan. The next morning, I was at the leasing office of our old apartment at 9 a.m. I told him the situation. The lease was in my name only. She was listed as an occupant. I told him I was moving out immediately. I paid the 2-month lease break fee right there. He was a decent guy and told me that since the place was empty of my stuff, he'll give her until Friday to get her things before he changed the locks. Then I went to the bank. We had a house fund that I had been contributing heavily to. I hadn't checked the balance in a few weeks because I trusted her. When the teller pulled up the statement, my blood ran cold. $22,000 was gone. It hadn't been taken out all at once. It was $2,000 here, $3,000 there, all transferred to an account labeled EGP Holdings. I knew immediately what EGP stood for: Elite Growth Partners. That was the business her mentor ran. She hadn't just been insulting me, she had been stealing from me to fund this guy's lifestyle, or some investment scam. I didn't panic. I went to a lawyer friend of mine. Under the laws of our state, since we weren't married, that money was legally mine. It was my sole account that I had given her authorized user access to for emergencies. Taking $22,000 for a crypto scheme wasn't an emergency. It was theft by deception. My lawyer told me to file a police report immediately. He said, if you don't report it now, it looks like a gift. If you report it, it's a crime. I filed the police report. By Thursday, the storm was hitting. My girlfriend had finally realized her mentor wasn't going to pay for her life. She had tried to use the credit card I gave her for groceries, but I had canceled it. She tried to go to the bank, but her access was gone. Her friends, the ones who were oohing and eyeing at the restaurant, suddenly stopped picking up her calls when they realized she didn't have my wallet behind her anymore. I was at my new condo with a woman I had known for years, a former colleague who had always been a genuine friend. We were sitting on the floor, eating pizza and looking at the city lights. Then my doorbell rang. My condo building has a high-tech security system, and I could see her on the screen downstairs. She was hysterical. She had tracked me down because I had left a forwarding address with the post office, and she had a friend who worked there. She was screaming into the intercom, begging to come up. I let her up just so the neighbors wouldn't call the cops on her. When I opened the door, she looked like a different person. Her hair was a mess, her expensive clothes were wrinkled, and she was clutching a designer bag that I had bought her for her birthday. "How could you do this?" she wailed. "The landlord told me I have to be out by tomorrow. I have no money. The mentor, he's gone. He blocked me. He took the money I invested and just disappeared." I leaned against the doorframe. "You didn't invest anything. You stole my money and gave it to a con artist because he told you what you wanted to hear. You told a room full of people I was a placeholder. Well, the spot has been filled." My friend, the new girl, walked up behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, looking calm and professional. My ex's eyes went wide. "Is this why? You were cheating on me? That's why you're doing this?"
"No," I said. "I started moving on the moment you decided to humiliate me to impress a group of losers. And just so you know, the police are looking for your mentor. And because your name is on all the transfer documents as the investor, they're going to be looking for you, too. I gave them everything." She turned pale. "What? You told the police? We can fix this. Just tell them it was a gift. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize to everyone. I'll post a video saying I was wrong." "It's too late for that," I said. "You wanted a man who could provide. I provided you with a life-changing lesson. I hope it was worth the steak dinner." I closed the door and locked it. I heard her sobbing in the hallway for about 10 minutes before security escorted her out. The fallout was intense. The mentor was caught a week later trying to fly to Mexico. It turns out he had scammed about a dozen people, mostly young women he'd convinced to invest their boyfriends' or parents' money. Because my ex had been the one to actually transfer the funds from my account, she was hit with a charge of grand larceny. My lawyer was a shark. We sat down with the DA, and I told them I didn't want her to go to prison. I just wanted my money back and for her to learn a lesson. She ended up taking a plea deal. She got 5 years of felony probation and was ordered to pay back every cent of the $22,000, plus my legal fees. She had to move back in with her parents in a small town 3 states away. She works at a local diner now, and 50% of her paycheck owes toward the restitution she owes me. Her influencer friends deleted every photo they had with her the second the word felony was mentioned. I see her occasionally on social media. Well, I see what people send me. She looks exhausted. No more Gucci, no more bistros, just a girl who realized too late that a solid foundation is worth more than a flashy coat of paint. I'm still with the new girl. We're taking it slow, building something real. She's an architect, ironically. We spend our nights talking about actual plans, not clout. I learned that a man's value isn't in how much he can be used for, but in who he chooses to stand next to when the walls get thin. If you want to make sure your own life's foundation stays solid and you don't end up paying for a mentor's vacation, hit that subscribe button. I promise my advice is cheaper than a $600 dinner.